Good evening. It's 5 o'clock.
Oh.
Ever.
Very good.
Well, we just talked about you.
Oh,
Early's on time, on time.
Just missed it.
We are up with mute.
Oh,
All right, so we will call our meeting to order for our Grants Pass School District Number 7 School Board meeting. Our first item on our agenda is to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd all stand, and please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good.
Ready to begin. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our second item is communications and presentations. Do you have any written communications, Superintendent Cole?
no written communications.
For those who are joining virtually, we'd like to remind you that if you wish to speak to a specific action item or discussion item, you may put your comments in the chat, and Dr. Bloomquist will allow you time when that item on the agenda comes up. 2.3 is our traffic impact analysis. So I think everybody on the board received an electronic copy of the report. Hopefully you had a chance to look at that. So
Were we supposed to memorize it?
yes, absolutely, all 347 pages or whatever it was.
I
Sorry.
apologize, I did not read that entire report, but
the summary was good, wasn't it?
the summary was good. My question is, as I recall, traffic signal costs around $250,000, is that correct?
I would not, I would personally not have that number, unless Sherry, maybe you want to comment the cost of installing a traffic signal. Do you know roughly what that was the last time it was priced out?
I do not remember, Kirk, and I wouldn't want to give some misinformation, so.
Sure, okay.
Okay.
Debbie, I have a similar memory, but I'm sure it costs a little bit more now than when we last got it quoted.
And would that be something we might be responsible for if this plan could move forward?
I believe we would be likely obligated to provide any improvements as related to future construction project and traffic impacts.
Thank you.
So I looked at the report. I couldn't quite decide if what was the current state of the intersection on Redwood Avenue and Dartmouth.
It was about the options.
What's that?
Just a little base.
In terms of level of service. In other words, how bad is it currently?
What's the delta?
Right. If you put in a traffic signal, it went up to A and B, but I couldn't quite figure out what was the current rating.
I could not either. I would need Sandow to probably explain or answer questions. If there are questions, then we can have Sherry get those out to Sandow for clarifications. So if you have those, send those to Sherry or myself, and we will get those off to the engineering firm and get those assessments.
I think it was an assessment for adding the middle school, so not a current assessment.
Well, they did a current assessment to build their model for the future assessment. So that would tell us what's the state of the intersection today.
What's the brief, why do you want to know?
What's the point?
Yeah.
One of the biggest pushbacks that we had when we were doing the 2 middle school bond was there were a number of residences, number of people in that area complaining about the traffic, in particular, the Redwood Avenue being able to get across it or even to get on it, especially in the morning. So one, to possibly mitigate that concern in advance before we actually go out for another bond so that that isn't a hot button topic with them would be good in my book. And also, if the intersection is currently marginal, and there's safety issues already for our students at Redwood, then I'm thinking that it might be a good time to look at, see what we could do to make the intersection safer for the Redwood students currently and position ourselves to use that property in the future. So that's what I'm thinking. So I need answers to those questions to be able to decide if that's a viable thing.
And do you want it just for that intersection, or it sounds like, at least on the being able to kind of counteract the argument that traffic all along Redwood is an issue already? Are you just curious about that intersection or Redwood Avenue in general?
Well, that intersection is clearly the one that has issues.
The most.
There was another one, I think it's the Leonard Road, Darnell intersection, which Redwood's just past that corner. So we'd like, I would like to know that. So if the rest of the board is okay with it, I'd like to get better information about what we might do currently to mitigate risk for our
Yeah.
students at Redwood and position ourselves.
So if you do go through, I can say from personal experience, being at the school, either at the start of school or at the end of school, and the significant backup of traffic pattern, folks parking right alongside of a two-lane essentially road and creating the side or the traffic where they cross, and the situation there, it's not good. So, yeah, I think, look at Highland right now during dismissal is,
Lincoln's
Red
still,
or
Lincoln's
North Middle
terrible.
School? I don't know.
So
Very
Sherry just indicated that she could ask Sandra to give us a presentation if we would like in the future on this topic.
Sounds good to me. And of course, we will try to get the city to pay for it
Well, did we ever
if
get the,
possible.
have we ever got the ODOT? We were waiting for an ODOT one.
is that the South Y connection?
Yeah. Did we get that one?
That was one the city was
Trade
conducting.
Park.
Correct.
Right.
We were thinking that with the bond,
We'll
that
have-
all of that.
We'll check with that to see what the status of that
Yeah,
analysis.
because we were waiting for the ODOT one for the South Y during the bond time,
Right. But
because we thought they would go together.
I think they took that into consideration in this one. The city just finished one in March, traffic study,
We did the transportation system.
transportation, okay. They did something. All I know, Valerie said that the city was doing some kind of transportation.
James is convinced it's the South Y. It's a clock. We can say that.
He's probably
It's
right.
gone.
I think if they were gonna, if we could get them to give us a presentation, I'm sure I would have some questions too.
Drum them up.
Yeah, I could find something.
All right, well, we'll schedule that.
All right, well, we'll jump on to number 3.0, our consent agenda. We can take all of these in one motion unless there is a specific point that anyone would like to make on any of these. 3.1, approval of our May 11th board agenda, and then approval of our April 27th board draft minutes, our financial report, our personnel report, our travel band trip to Hawaii, our orchestra trip to Los Angeles, both of which will be scheduled in June of 2022. St. Anne's responsive classroom trip to New Hampshire, and then the welding educator workshop back in Ohio. So we will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is it Member Durbin, so moved?
Member Coolman, second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
We have a question on 3.4, since it's related to personnel, would that be appropriate for executive session, or little lax on my rules there?
If you're inquiring about specific individuals,
Yeah.
then that would not be appropriate to do during open session. It's not currently slated as an executive session item, but it's, the board chair may add an executive session discussion on confidential personnel matters.
We can add it to next agenda too. It's not a pressing thing, but just something that
Okay,
I'd like to ask a question on.
great. We will plan it for it next session. If you want to meet with me ahead of time, I'll have the heads up and any information necessary ready for the board.
Perfect. I would like to comment, it looks very exciting to see our groups willing to possibly dream about moving
Planning
and
forward.
changing and, yeah, going forward.
A year away, hopefully it will happen. Yes, Gary?
So I just, a couple of these things are high dollar items, and I just wanted the public to know that those are fundraised by the students themselves, and it doesn't come out of the district's general.
Very good. We will note that in the record, that these are student body funds generated by fundraising to support these trips. One of them is a CTE Perkins funded professional development, and the other, St. Anne's, receives a proportionate share of federal dollars, title dollars, that they are choosing to use to provide professional development to their staff. So we'll make sure that's in the record. Thank you.
All right, so it has been moved and seconded. Any other comments? We have a roll call vote, please, Tanya?
Member DeLaGrange,
Yes.
Member Durbin,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes.
Member Coolman,
All right,
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson,
Yes?
okay, thank you. 4.0, our reports. We have staff reports tonight. We have our medical school. We have our middle school principals reporting to us tonight, and so we will turn the time over to who is going to go first tonight? Who's first up on the docket?
I'll introduce us. I'm going to let you know that I'm not going to talk about anything that has to do with medical school. That's not my area of expertise, but Mr. Sale and myself will address a few things for the middle schools, including some highlights and some things that we're currently working on. The last presentation, you saw South talk about a new potential schedule. We both, the two middle schools, are currently putting our master schedules together. There's still some work to be done in terms of agreements on what that schedule will look like at each of the schools, as well as what advisory may look like at North Middle School. North Middle School is currently going to continue with the traditional 8-period day with the creation of an advisory period. For those of you that have been out of school for a while, it might be similar to a homeroom experience where a number of SEL activities are going to take place. And then South is also busy working on the PD for transitioning from 48-minute classes to 72-minute classes. As a part of that, we are going to be doing some forecasting with our kids, and we're starting to get to know some of our incoming 6th graders, as Mr. Sale will take over and talk about it this time.
Hey, good evening, everybody. We are in the process of visiting our elementary schools right now to connect with those 5th graders like Mr. Blanchard talked about. Last week, both North and South visited Parkside Elementary, and then next week we're going to be going to Riverside together as well. And then each school takes their elementary school that they have, with South, Redwood, and Allendale. We visited Allendale earlier this week, and then Mr. Blanchard will be leading his crew to Lincoln and Highland to visit those students as well. Typically, we have our 5th graders visit the campus at North and South, but not able to do that this year without getting really tricksy with some of the field trip guidance. But we have some plans to kind of work around that. And then our parent night for both North and South middle schools, we typically have on campus as well. And we are going to have our parents do a virtual 5th grade parent night next Wednesday, May 19th, to meet administrators, counselors, and ask any questions and just generally learn about 6th grade.
One of the highlights that just took place was last Wednesday, May 5th, we had an honor orchestra presentation that has been a serious work in progress. as things shut down last year, the current fifth graders or current sixth graders, last year's fifth graders were not able to produce a concert at the end of the year. So this year started out with students coming together and having auditions to perform for the honor orchestra. That transitioned into 2 split groups where some students would be at the PAC at Grants Pass High School while others were participating via Zoom. Later on near spring break, that transitioned to all students being at the PAC, maintaining appropriate physical distancing. And that culminated in last week's effort by our honor orchestra grades 6 through 8 from both North and South with their first concert of the year. They played 4 different productions and followed that up with a physical distance activity at the end. It was live streamed for parents and recorded to be able to be sent out afterwards for those parents that were not able to attend. As much fun as it was for the kids, it was amazing for our teachers to get to showcase all the hard work and to have that culminate in a really fun activity that has been something that has been missing for quite some time now.
Thanks, Mr. Blanchard. We had a great time playing that video in our front office today, just listening to the awesome sounds of our kids. I get to talk about cross country and volleyball, and we had a ton of kids go out for those 2 athletic opportunities for our kids this spring, and both schools wrapped up very successful seasons, which was very fun. For track, we have our first meet for both North and South tomorrow at Grants Pass High School, and that's going to be with Lincoln Savage and Fleming Middle Schools. Both North and South have over 100 students at each school, so over 200 of our middle school kids are participating in that. We are very appreciative to Grants Pass High School allowing us to run our meets this year, so thank you to Athletic Director Roundsville for being very gracious. We're super appreciative that we've been able to provide athletic opportunities for our students this year and at no cost to them. I think that has been huge for our kids and our families, and hearing a lot of comments, especially from our families. My kid just needs to be outside and go do something. And so that's been huge for our kids and families both.
At both schools, we are super excited about the possibility of having more students on campus with numbers declining. And I know this is a topic on the agenda for later on this evening, but we are both preparing to have more students on campus right now with a focus on what does that mean for transition times for students arriving and dismissing at the end of the day. What does that look like for PE and music? And at whatever time students will be consuming food. And for the middle schools, that primarily means breakfast. So super excited about that possibility. And we are prepping and will be prepared when that opportunity is presented to us.
All right, and then lastly, from both North and South middle schools, we are busy planning end of the year activities, and we've been in coordination with Director Ely, who has been providing us superb guidance for having a safe, fun thing for all of our 8th graders that are moving on to the high school. And we know and agree that graduation is the focus, but we are very appreciative of the work that our district directors have been providing and the support and guidance for us and having a fun 8th grade moving on ceremony as well. So we're getting our final plans, given the big thumbs up by the Josephine County Health Department, and we're grateful for them as well for giving us some great guidance. And then I think soon we'll be posting our summer school activities for students and finalizing plans for those to keep students connected with the school, and really appreciative to all of the work that Director Evans has been giving us and spearheading that effort to keep our kids connected this summer and engaged with school. So thanks so much. That's the update from North and South.
Real quickly, Barrett, if you'll take a look at the chat, I believe Amy Vanderveen had a question about your 72-minute periods. Amy, Barrett Principal Sale did a very comprehensive presentation to the board, has also offered that to parents of South Middle School. And so, Barrett, I'm going to ask that you address or respond to Amy offline, or either directly in the chat now or offer to provide her further information about South schedule change offline. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate what you're doing at the middle schools, and we applaud your efforts and encourage you to continue. So thanks for getting the kids back and for having athletic events and orchestra and all that you're doing. We appreciate that. 4.1.2, Reach for Success, our ninth grade P1 through 3. We'll turn the time over to Principal Thompson and Assistant Principal Napier.
All right, well, thank you very much. When Mrs. Napier left the classroom and joined administration, we had a teaching vacancy that was left unfilled this past year. And in the back of and recesses of our mind, we had been exposed to a couple of other districts that had come up with, I'm going to use the term Avid Light for a class for students that maybe they don't have that determination piece quite yet, but just need some of the organizational skills, study skills, et cetera. And Mrs. Napier has been working very hard at this class development. And I'm going to let her introduce the course to you.
Thanks, Ryan. So we know that via research that it's super important that we keep ninth graders on track. It makes them more likely to graduate on time with their peers. And so a lot of the work we're doing right now is reactive. We react to kids that potentially fail classes. We react to them struggling. And so we really wanted to put something in place that was more preventative, that we can catch those kids prior to them failing classes or feeling unsuccessful at Grants Pass High School. And so that's kind of where this Reach for Success class came. And so it's a class that's really going to focus on growth mindset and getting the kids connected to the school. So working on organization, time management, but also what's going on around campus. What can we get you involved in? Because we know that kids that are involved are more likely to come to school and stick around. Working on advocating for themselves and building some confidence in themselves as students is super important. We're going to work on goal setting, not just academic goals, but personal goals as well. And then working on their skills as a student. So let's talk about your learning style. Let's work on your note-taking skills. How do you read stuff and pull information out of it and have it make sense? Working on your study skills, working collaboratively. How do you study with a group of friends? I know that kids enjoy doing that. So how do you make that successful? How do you manage your stress? School is overwhelming, and the transition from middle school to high school can be a tough one for kiddos. And so how do we manage that stress and make things a little bit easier for them? And then, what do you want to do after high school? It's important to have a post-secondary plan, and it's going to be different for every kid. For some kids, it's going to be college. For other kids, it's going to be potentially a trade school or maybe into the military or right into the workforce. And so wanting to help them navigate what that's going to look like. And so this class is really, it's going to take away some of those barriers that our kiddos have when they transition from middle school to high school. It's going to work on their growth mindset. Our ultimate goal would be, we put these kids in class first semester. We're going to use the data to drive that. Kids that are failing multiple classes at middle school, those are the kids that we want in this class because we want to help support them. And then from there, maybe at the end of the semester, they're an AVID kid, and we want to have them transition from this class into our AVID program. Maybe they're a kiddo that needs this class again. They need the support all year as a freshman, and so they're going to stay put. We have a really great social, emotional, academic tutorial, and maybe the kiddo needs to move to that instead. So we really kind of see this as a way to catch them before they fall, and then help them move in the right direction, whatever that may be. So I'm super excited about this opportunity and to really catch those kids that might fall through the crack because there's not a program right now for them. And I think that this will fill that void.
Any questions at all about the class?
I think you had Gary at academic plan, so he's all on board with that.
Close. So my question, it's not really a question, but I guess I want to make sure that there is significant emphasis on that personal plan and academic map. Not that this, I don't know how to put it, not the material that was presented to the student and then the student's supposed to figure it out themselves. They can't get it, give them a map, say, do this.
Yeah, and you know, the class is gonna focus on, here's all the things that you need to accomplish and take and do when you're in high school, and then where is that gonna lead you, and what are your interests, and how can we help them navigate a path so they have a plan when they graduate high school. And so that will be, yes, they won't be left on their own. We will guide them through the process.
Okay. Well, I don't, it's good for them to have a plan when they graduate, but I want them to have a plan when they're ninth graders for high school. That's the plan. I'm worried about it.
We share that same interest as well, Gary. One other quick note, we had a fantastic pool of applicants and happened to find somebody who helped develop the same, not exact, but very similar course for freshmen in the San Diego area, and has since relocated to Grants Pass several years ago. And so super excited about this person joining our staff and getting this class off the ground for kids.
I just wanted to say that I think this class sounds great, and I'm glad you're proposing it. Thanks.
Thank you.
If I would echo that, thank you. This is an exciting opportunity for the kids, and I think it helps to build equity because equity comes in all shapes and sizes, and not everyone has, I think, maybe parental guidance or a plan as they come in, and this really helps provide some assistance for them to level the playing field, if you will. So I'm excited for that.
Ryan, do you know how many sections you anticipate offering?
We, when we first were looking at this course offering, we ran data at South and North for 8th graders that were failing either 2 or 3 courses as one data point, and we had a little over 90 students. And so we feel like we could fill this teacher's schedule because we want to keep class sizes, you know, smaller in probably the high teens, probably not much more than 20 or so. We also want to couple an upperclassman in there to help with some of the tutoring aspects and coordination of tutoring in different subjects as well.
Thank you.
Is this something like Avid that has the potential to move down into the middle schools?
We would love to see that, but I know that I'll defer to Trish, Tommy, and Barrett on that, but I think it's never too early to learn those skills.
I mean, to catch them before they fail?
Well, I suspect we'll hear more about this, and if it is successful, I'm sure we can delve into spreading it throughout the district. So that's great. Well, thank you. We will move on to 4.1.3, our positive sound discipline pilot, and Principal Mooney.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Christine Mooney, the principal of Redwood, and I just want to say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share with you what we've been doing here at Redwood with our positive discipline pilot school. I have with us today our data team, who is Missy Fitzsimmons, Annie Blanchard, Laura Richardson, and Crystal Pump, who's going to help me present today. We have a lot going on, and we could take a lot of time sharing, and so we're going to try to condense it into a very short and sweet presentation. I do want to take a second really quick and give a big shout out to 3 very important people that have helped us along the way this whole year. And that is Jody McVitie, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships and co-founder of Sound Discipline, Glennon Montgomery, who is a facilitator with Sound Discipline, and Nicolette Smith, who works with the SOESD and works with Sound Discipline as well, because they have helped us all year long. So yeah, huge shout out to all 3 of them. So, all right, next, Todd. So this is kind of a timeline of how everything has gone so far from the beginning. The reason why Redwood was chosen to be part of the pilot school was in the school year of 2019-2020, we had a huge number of staff members that went through the positive discipline training. We had probably about 90% of our staff, 80 to 90% of our staff, certified staff go through the training, and a huge percentage of our classified staff signed up. And so we were kind of highlighted, and sound discipline really took a notice to us. So then that way, in the summer of 2020, the district office asked if we wanted to be a pilot school, because Jody McVitie approached them and said, hey, this is a school we wanted to see if they wanted to do this. The deal is that we had to have 80% of our staff vote yes, that they wanted to take this on. And the deal is that they had to commit to basically two things. The minimum commitment was they had to do an initial survey in the fall saying that they had to reflect on their practices and what they were doing in the classroom and kind of their views of how they saw kids and everything. And then in the spring, they had to take that same survey. That was the minimum commitment. They were going to be offered a lot of different resources and supports that they could take advantage of, but that was the minimum commitment. I had to commit to being part of a data team, and some other supports. And then I needed to have my behavior intervention specialist commit to some things as well. We were on board, and so we said, hey, why not? Let's bring it to the staff. It was a little crazy thinking this was going to be during the year of COVID, but we thought, well, it seems like a lot of great resources to put out there for students, families, and staff, so why not? In October, we brought the presentation to the staff. Jody and her team presented it, and we had the vote, and it was over 80%. So we did the initial staff survey. We did a positive discipline refresher with everybody. And then from November to May, we implemented our data team, which you'll learn more about in a minute. And then we started with our additional staff supports. Then we also just continued with some different PD. Now we're all the way into May, and we're going to start our final staff survey so we can reflect on our growth from our staff. All right, next. So this graphic right here from Sound Discipline really illustrates how positive discipline itself is not just an isolated thing. It integrates both our social learning programs, such as Second Steps, which we use every day, and our school discipline programs, such as PBIS, and it integrates the two of them together. They all work together. And then it uses data and it drives all of our decisions within our building. And what's really nice about the pilot school is that it has given us tools through our data team, through our surveys. And we also have this multi-tiered tool that we're using with some of our teams to give us some more data to say, what lessons should we be teaching in the classroom? What groups should we be grouping students with? What tier 3 interventions should we be using with students to actually help students better be more successful in our school? The thing about positive discipline is that it's solution focused, it's data driven, it's trauma informed, and it really focuses in on social emotional learning. All right, next. So this is the most exciting slide to me because it really shows everything that we've been doing this whole year with our pilot school. The top 3 things you're going to learn a little bit more about. We have had monthly data meetings, and so that's who's going to be presenting as my data team, which I'm not the person in charge of. You're going to see I'm just one of the team members. We have monthly tier 3 meetings. We have monthly teacher helping teachers meetings. And then we have monthly classified meetings. These classified meetings are meetings where the sound discipline team that is primarily based in the Puget Sound area, they meet with our classified staff to help give them trainings, to help them with supports, just to move them forward with their shift in thinking about how to support students. We had a Puget Sound talk with the Puget Sound team up in the Seattle area, which you're going to hear a little bit more about. We've also had additional positive discipline training and workshops to move our whole school staff to be more positive discipline trained. We're almost at 100% certified trained, and we're working towards that with our classified staff. We've offered more classes to the public and to our staff, reimagining resilience and parenting classes. We've had, there's a sound discipline flyer that was put out by the sound discipline people that had multiple hot links to different resources we put out at conferences. And I pushed that out to our district as well as to options to push out to different families around the community. The multi-tiered SEL screening tool is what I talked about a little bit. That was grant funded through the SOESD. And that's just been recently implemented with one of our school teams. And the idea is that starting next year, we'll start working with more school teams where the grade level team puts in, the first layer of it is the school team puts in their class roster. And the first layer, they see what tier 1 intervention can I do for my class? Where's the need? So it's not that they're doing a bunch of lessons on skills the students have as a whole. It's focused in on what skills does this class need. And then the second layer of the screener tool says what groups, what specific students need small groups. And then it layers down into a tier 3. Which is really nice because for the first time ever, we're feeling like we've always had tools for reading data and math data, but now we're actually getting more specific data for SEL, for our social emotional learning growth for kids. Also, we have recently become a pilot school for social emotional learning small groups for sound discipline. So Missy Fitzsimmons has been doing some trial small groups and giving feedback to sound discipline for that. We're also coming up onto a date, May 26th, where the 3 regional pilot schools are going to be doing a cross school analysis and convening to talk about how our year has gone. And so we're going to be getting some feedback from some other schools to where we can share how our year has gone and kind of our highlights and maybe some areas of, you know, hey, how's that gone for you guys? And getting some feedback from them as well. All right, next. I'm going to turn it over to Missy.
Hi, everyone. As Christine shared, we have a monthly data team meeting and wanted to share with you a little bit about that monthly data team meeting. It identifies a problem and an issue or a concern that mirrors almost like a class meeting that you do through sound discipline. Those are happening in the classrooms all the time. And it's a huge team problem solving and resource that the teachers are doing with their students on a weekly basis. So as a school, we use the data from different surveys and feedback, observations and lessons to create an action plan that supports students and staff success. When our school voted to become a positive discipline school, we needed to find out what the staff believed were the priority areas that we needed to focus on this year. And through a staff survey, we identified that defiance was the primary concern of staff, student defiance specifically. Then we went through an activity where we had the teachers go through a process with their students to learn more about the why behind defiant behavior of students. And that was a really exciting process because through that, we were able to learn through the students' voices that what drives defiant behavior on students' parts is the big feelings that they're having around all sorts of things. And so what we decided to do was have the entire school, every grade level and every classroom, do a positive discipline lesson called Sad, Mad, Glad, and Scared. And it's a process in which the entire class goes through a lesson that helps them learn vocabulary, increase their awareness and knowledge about what big feelings are, and begin to become more comfortable and familiar with sharing and talking about with their peers and their teacher their own big feelings. Each teacher did this with both of their cohorts and realized very quickly that when we got to come back full time, it was going to be really exciting to be able to continue this process with their entire class. But the teachers never took that lesson down. Even when we were still hybrid, they continued to grow and grow and grow that list and vocabulary of feelings, talk about it as a class, and continue to help the comfort level of students increase. So finally, and each of these steps are steps that we created at different monthly meetings. Finally, before students returned full time, our data team worked with staff to come up with ways that staff could facilitate entire class meetings during hybrid, both online and in person, to talk about and discuss the possible challenges of what larger class sizes was going to look like with our students. For example, how to share your teacher with when you add another half class size, how to be able to share resources on the playground, those kinds of things. And so we worked with teachers to be able to do that. And then in addition, we gave teachers 3 other options in addition to the sad, mad, glad, and scared lesson. We gave them 3 other sound discipline lessons that they could do when all of their students returned to address and continue to address big feelings in their classrooms. They have all done it. It went very, very well. And now our next step is to be able to come back and work with staff on, okay, how did that process go? Did we accomplish our goal of addressing big feelings, which ultimately reduced a defiant behavior in the classroom? And what are our goals going to be for next year as we move forward with this data team? So the data team did a lot of work and so many staff participated. Thank you, Christine.
Okay, hi, I'm Annie Blanchard, and I'm really excited to share my experience with our Tier 3 meetings with you and kind of explain what those are. So as you guys have, Missy and both Christine have mentioned that they occur monthly, and the people involved in these meetings are our data team. So our data team is always there, and we open it up to our entire staff. We really encourage previous teachers to come and weigh in and contribute to the student and the problem solving that we go throughout the meeting. It's a very organized, focused, student-driven approach, which we love. We don't love those meetings that just, are these little squirrel trails. So it's very organized and focused, and it's student-driven. The purpose is to have a holistic approach so we can help address some of the student behaviors and ultimately really provide support for our Tier 3 students. So the major goal of this meeting, before we even set out filling out forms and doing all that stuff, is we have to arrive at the belief behind the behavior. And we do that we have to find the root of the student's behavior. And we do that through our sound discipline beliefs behind the behavior chart. And it is fabulous. This chart just has every behavior. I've actually used it with my own children at home to figure out why they're acting a certain way. So we all know the beliefs behind the behavior. It really helps us identify the child's mistaken beliefs about themselves. So we know that iceberg analogy, and the tip of the iceberg is really the behavior that we see in the classroom. It's, for my student in particular, when we were having this meeting, it was running, it was hiding, it was emotional outbursts, disrespect towards our staff members, hitting. So all of these things are the tip of the iceberg. We were able to look at our beliefs behind the behavior and really identify that this student, their mistaken belief about themselves is that for this particular child, it was I count or belong only when I'm getting attention and when others notice me. Well, we were definitely noticing this child. However, this is why we're having this meeting, is we want to notice this child for those strengths and those positive attributes. So once we arrive at that, then we're able to kind of move to our planning phase of this meeting. And this is where we fill out our intervention form, and we brainstorm and we strategize and come up with solutions to be able to help this child and all the teachers and support staff that are working to support this child. So for this specific student, I was able to identify, okay, this child loves animals and they love plants. And so, hey, let's give them a job to do. And so this student was my gardener and would come in and water my plants every day. From coming from the playground, it would also get them in off the playground, which was a bonus. Then I was able to kind of sit down with this student and develop a secret signal. So this student is constantly trying to get my attention, whether I'm teaching whole group or I'm back here doing small group. And I needed to create a positive way for that child to do that. So I had the student come up with any special signal, and this is what the student chose. So anytime they had, they needed me or anything, they would just kind of go like this, and I would look at the student and make this cute little face. And I said, and anytime I do that, it means you matter and you're important to me. So that was just a great connection. Throughout the meeting, we also have other support staff, our Learning Center staff members that check in with this child that had a role. We have the student's aide that also has a role. So there's an awesome support system in place. So it doesn't just fall on the teacher to create these action plans. And then the best part of the meeting is that we're not done. We come back because, like we said, we meet monthly and we're able to follow up. We're able to revisit, adjust, and modify and make sure that we're doing everything we can to meet the needs of our most intensive students in the classroom. That's our Tier 3 meeting in a nutshell. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Laura, who's going to touch on our Teachers Helping Teachers meeting.
Hey, I'm Laura Richardson, and I teach second grade here at Redwood. I get to talk to you about the Teachers Helping Teachers. This is a monthly meeting that we have. It's a very safe and powerful tool. It's safe because teachers have to be vulnerable in bringing an issue that they're having with a student to the meeting. And it's powerful because we're put in role plays where we feel the emotions that the teacher would have, but also that the students would have. And then we're looking at the feelings behind those emotions. So the way it works is a teacher volunteers to present a problem or an issue to the group. And then the teacher and the group, someone from the group role plays the scenario. Everyone is invited to this. It's one teacher in the building that chooses to do it, but everybody can come and be a part of it or just come and listen in. We know ahead of time what it's going to be. So if you're having a problem with a child who is blurting out, Christine will let us know this is what we're going to be talking about, and it's most likely something that we can all use. So in that, then we have a discussion time where the person who brought the problem either gets to be the teacher or the student, and they role play the situation. It is so powerful because you actually feel those emotions that you feel when you're a teacher role playing it. And then as you're playing the student, you kind of feel what you think they might be feeling too. So that's why I say it's powerful. And then there's some brainstorming that goes on, and then you leave with so many ideas. We save them in the chat, so you have all that to take back, but then you choose one or two that you want to try. So that's what Teachers Helping Teachers looks like. We meet every month, and again, it's open to everyone, and it's a very powerful tool. I think I'm sending it to Crystal next.
All right, so I'm Crystal, and I teach third. And Todd, can you go one more? That's just an awesome picture of an awesome group of people. Okay, so one of the cool things about the sound discipline and being part of the school is that, yes, we work to meet student needs, but what's even cooler is that we get a lot of help too as staff and tools and make connections and things like that to better meet our student needs. And so we were approached by Jody, and we had one of our schools that's also a sound discipline school that we're actually returning to hybrid a few months ago. And I kind of feel like we braved the waters already from September on the K through 3, and we had, done a lot of the problem solving already in advance. And so Jody reached out and said, would you be willing to meet with this school so they could ask questions, and how can they better meet their students' needs, and what are you doing for your students? And so it was actually a very powerful thing for me. I love talking about it. I will tell anybody about it. And so when we were logged on, they asked very thoughtful questions. You could see genuine concern that they had, which were the same concerns we had in September. And so because of our experience, we were able to alleviate a lot of their stress and a lot of their nervousness that could have impacted even their students' nervousness and stress levels. And so it was just amazing to be able to meet with them and talk about, here's what we did, here's, you know, some recommendations we have, here's some tips and tricks. And it was just a really great time for us to connect with another school who was going through what we had already gone through. And afterward, we got a ton of emails about thank you for meeting with us. And what's so great about that is that now we know that we are able to reach out to them. So when we have a problem that might be affecting our school that we know that they've already gone through, we know they're going to meet with us and give us tips and tricks that they've already gone through to help us. And so collaborating is just a huge part of what sound discipline is all about. And this really does just speak to that it's not just at our school, it is spreading, and we're just so thankful to be a part of it. And yeah, so that's why it's important. And next, Todd.
So just to kind of wrap it up, this quote came to us when we met to kind of talk about our presentation. And this was by a Redwood student from an activity, Name It to Tame It. And I'll read it to you. It just says, I didn't even know what I needed until I was able to talk about it. And it just exemplifies what a lot of students think and feel. We hear these quotes all the time. And I think that, so even though taking on the pilot school has been hard, it's been a lot. It has been a lot of really great things for our school. And I know that we would do it again. And we are so, so pleased. So thank you for listening to our presentation. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Debbie?
So we've learned through the ACEs, acute childhood experiences, that, you know, a child or adult has a situation that hits a trigger, and, you know, they kind of freeze, and the little hand thing where you really can't talk to them until they relax enough for their brain to be able to discuss higher thought processes. So is that part of this process that you're working with on the positive sound discipline pilot?
Yes, we do the brain lesson in all of our classrooms, and the trauma-informed practice that is part of positive discipline completely.
Yes. Yeah, you've got the triggering experience, and then you can't start doing these role-playing solutions until the people are ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that a lot of what positive discipline has done for us is that we are teaching our students skills, but while we're doing that, we're learning skills ourselves. And so it's kind of twofold.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is the staff survey that you're about to send out to get the feedback from teachers on how the years kind of progressed, is that going to be something that we can see some comparative data on what staff engagement and overall satisfaction with results looks like?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be that's exactly what it is. It's a comparison. So we can monitor our growth and use that data to see where we've grown, where we need to grow more, and then use that data for next year.
Are there thoughts on opening this out to other schools if there's, you know, positive growth there that we see?
Yeah, I know Jody, I know you're on the meeting, Jody McVitie from Sound Discipline. And we've had some conversations about adding schools, and we haven't gotten there to see, you know, I know there's 2 districts in Southern Oregon, 2 schools, Redwood being one of them, one being in Medford. I see Heidi's on there too. So anyway, I think we're hopefully running this pilot. They're going to learn a lot about what this looks like implementing across the board. And so we're in conversations about next steps regarding additional schools and funding sources to provide this stuff. Right now, it's great. They're funded through the ESD for this pilot project.
So is it something that you continue to pay for the service, or is it something that kind of teacher is spread?
It's coaching and implementation is the cost for some discipline staff. And so, and so once you're established, I don't know what the ongoing consulting looks like. I think they're in the works of saying what are the next steps for these pilot schools, hence being a pilot.
We had that other program that started at
Speak Up Theory, the CLEAR project.
So how is that replicated to the rest of our element?
So we are no longer doing the CLEAR project. The costs on that were significant. I don't know, Todd would be able to speak to where the CLEAR project was, how it evolved, to where we're at now, and the different directions we're taking. We've done a lot of work around resiliency, brain science, and then systems right now. I think what we are learning through positive discipline is the systems approach, that one slide that had the 3 circles that overlap, and really putting a systems approach to it. So probably much deeper than what the CLEAR project did, but I would defer to Todd, who that's his wheelhouse and our experience as an evolution of the district.
Sure, I could talk to it real quick. So we had 7 schools in total that did some version of the CLEAR work with Dr. Blodgett. He has actually since retired. And so Washington State University is working through whether they're going to keep that project going. It was pretty expensive because you're just paying for staff time. When the positive discipline came around and the ESD was supporting it, I did a pretty deep dive into it to look at the backstory of it, and got to get connected with Jody and the team and Heidi. And it very much aligns with the work that came out of the CLEAR project, trauma-informed practices, the brain-based sciences. I was looking for the evidence of like Bruce Perry's work that's also embedded in it. And it's just a marvelous framing of taking us to the next level of really practical tools for staff that we can all get our heads and hands around, that really are supportive of kids and align with the science. So we've actually funded quite a bit of the work through the district in partnership with the ESD to make this happen. So really, really proud of the team at Redwood and the way they've embraced it. And then of course the support team that's just been right there beside them the whole way.
So Laura Richardson just made a comment in there. She said positive discipline is the next steps to CLEAR. CLEAR was a lot of learning for adults in that process, and as well as some skill building, but this is now systematizing it. So it's data-driven and built into the school systems more methodically.
And if it's okay if I speak off the slideshow for a minute, for me
No,
personally.
no, you can't do that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, I'm like, I'll remute. It's just that, like, what's been so amazing about this is that we all know how COVID has affected our students. And I really do feel like this has given, for a long time as a teacher, I feel like it was a kid would do something and I'd be like, oh my gosh, why are you doing this? And then be like, boom, go to the learning center, or here's a tracker, or whatever the course may be. And I feel like this has really given me personally tools to just take a step back and say, like, why is the student acting like this? Why is this happening? Is this because they haven't been around 30 kids since March of, or is this something happened at home? And it's just really given me tools to really work with my students. And I've drastically seen behavior go down in my own classroom. I've seen kids be more able to talk about their feelings and being able to address those deep rooted feelings instead of a kid just saying, fine. They'll tell me, hey, my parents fought all night. I'm just so tired. It's just really given me a community that I've always wanted in my classroom. And Jody, I'm so grateful. And Christine, I'm really grateful that you did it. It's exactly the kind of classroom I want. And I think you guys, if you saw it just in person, would just be so proud. So.
I want that chart that Annie was talking about that explains when my kid does this, it means this, because I want that on my fridge at home so I can help translate to adults.
So all your parents, you need to offer all your parent trainings to more than just Redwood parents, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you for that wonderful presentation. We're excited to see how that goes. And Lake Bridge for
You
20
said it for
years.
20 years and didn't share.
And we hope if it is
Google the
as
carpal.
successful as it sounds, that we can share this with the other schools. So,
Yes.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Is that something that continues to be funded by?
We will have to look at, Soren's funding the pilot project, so we'll have to look at future funding, what that might look like. It could, at some point, SIA dollars or those, now we're really looking at, equity in our discipline practices and our approach to behavior and stuff like that. So anyway, we'll have to look at that in the future and what opportunities are presented.
okay, we'll go on to 4.2, our superintendent's report, school opening update. So we'll
Yeah.
turn the time over to Kirk.
Yeah, so through dialogue with some community members, felt like this needed to be a standing item on the board agenda going forward. So a couple of comments right now. We had an initial meeting with the Oregon Department of Education, who were going to give us some guidance or thoughts around reopening schools in the fall. Very disappointed in the direction the meeting went. It was more about how do you all feel, what do you all think? And there's two things you could probably count on. And the two things they indicated were masking and distancing measures, to what degree to be determined. So that was all that was communicated to us. There will be another update here in June, where we will get together and then hopefully we'll unveil something of substance. They do not, their original timeline had identifying July 29th as the date they would release final guidance, and that just doesn't work for school districts. We need to know that now as we plan through June while we have our administrators and staff on board. So they heard loud and clear that they need to expedite that, make some decisions sooner than later. That's what they heard from superintendents, but they've heard a lot from superintendents. So we'll see. Things have changed quite 10 times throughout the year, this year. Next update, I'm pleased to say that as of this Monday, we were under the 200 per 100,000 case count. And we are trending right now to go even lower to next Monday. And in which case we will officially declare next Monday that all secondary students will return to school every day, starting next week, Thursday, whatever next week Thursday is. So we are hopeful, anticipating that opening on that date. So excited to share that. A couple of caveats with that. June 4th is graduation, scheduled graduation, and we typically have not had classes at Grants Pass High because we need all the staff setting up for graduation. Graduation is still yet to be determined. We're expecting clear guidance on that. It needs to be out this week, but maybe by next week. Right now, it just points to the county metrics of graduation. And the percentage of outdoor venue that we can occupy right now, I believe, is about 15%. Now that we're under the 200, that number may go up to like 25%. So that's going to dictate how many graduation ceremonies. Right now, I told Principal Thompson, plan for 4 at the most, and likely 2 at the least, given current conditions and what we're hearing out there. So on that day, high school students will not attend, but will have opportunities on their Canvas account and CDL work assigned by high school staff to occupy freshmen through sophomores or freshmen through juniors on that day. Also, the last day of school for middle school is a half day, and it will be 8th graders only if they're moving on and transition stuff. So sort of just a couple of caveats I wanted to make sure we're in there. Also, as part of this transition, contractually, the secondary staff will have next Wednesday is all CDL anyway, that they would not have to meet with kids online on that day as they prepare their rooms to have their entire classes in. So those are some updates right there. I know that there are some community members who wish to ask some questions and make some comments, and I would just open it to the board first right now if you had any further questions.
What are times? Are we still at a 12 half day?
Yeah, we are still at that. So the issue at odds for us is 6 feet of distancing when eating. And how do we accomplish that at a comprehensive comprehensive high school right now. And so I believe us opening up, we may be one of the largest high schools in the state to be able to bring all kids back at the same time. So that's the encouraging side. The discouraging side is we got to maintain our current schedule essentially. And it's the 6 feet. Where do we feed them? How do we do it? When do we do it? Can we opening up off campus just creates a whole new set of headaches. And so anyway, those are the challenges presented. Ideally, next year we'll go in with guidance that allows us to feed kids and possibly have open campuses because Grants Pass High School, to ensure every kid gets to eat on campus. The Commons is already packed, especially with freshmen and sophomores. But we know that we have many that go off campus for lunch as well. So it's a capacity issue in whatever the guidance is.
You say the Commons, are you talking about inside or outside? And is it 6 feet outside?
It is. All eating is 6 feet right now under RSSL. Yep.
That is good. Can you say the part you did earlier with the ODE update regarding the mask part and the social distancing part? They gave a little bit of color to that?
They only said there will be anticipate masks and some specifics around social distancing.
For going forward, for next year?
For next year.
Okay.
Yep.
I think I just want to bring up some of the feedback that I've heard from community members. I might be stealing the thunder for people that are on the meeting tonight, but just to hopefully ask the question that I think I know the answer to, but give us a chance to discuss it and say it so everybody listening can kind of understand. Because we've got concerned constituents that would like us to just say no masks, that's detrimental to the kids' health. This is what we should be doing. This is what our community wants, etc. And even if that's what our community wants, understanding what the ramifications would be to a school that decided to go against RSSL, which is telling us we need to do these things. Because I think what would be helpful for the community to hear is, although even if, we as a school board, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, felt similarly and wanted to move down that path, what the consequences of a situation like that would look like, and really that discussion is not something, or decision is not something that we can make here in the school board.
Yeah, so right now, if you're not aware, OSHA changed what they're monitoring. So we know that people can file complaints with OSHA against local businesses, and that includes school districts. We've had a number of complaints this year that we've had to demonstrate that we're doing everything we can to abide by the expectations. OSHA has revised what they are going to monitor, and it will be masking and signage. So masking, that you make sure you're following the mask mandates. And if you're not, OSHA has their system of penalties, which is usually predicated on the number of employees you have in terms of fines. So that's one aspect. There's another aspect of the ethical educator, and that I've got this government mandate essentially, and then I intentionally choose to violate that government mandate. Is there an ethics question, an ethical violation? So that's a couple of things in question with regard to that. So doing the federal testing. What's that?
Like not doing the federal testing.
And getting clarity from Oregon Department of Ed on that matter and what the implications are, and still operating the testing.
But let's finish the issue that we're talking about just right here in a second, because I think that's important for the community to hear. Because I think there's a detrimental effect to the school district should we try to go down that path, even if it's something we as a community wanted to do. And really our mission is to be here for the kids and making decisions that would adversely affect that. We have to weigh all of those things. So I wanted, I think the comments and the emails and the conversations that I've had, it's not falling on deaf ears. We're trying our best to follow the rules and give feedback when you have your meetings with OD, try to, move that, stick in the right direction. But we do have limited options. So I just wanted to get that out in the public forum so we get a chance to explain
The reason why.
Yeah, the reason why we haven't made this.
But we do have options. We can choose not to necessarily follow the specific guidelines that they have. And there are possible ramifications to those, just as there were for ignoring the federal testing guidelines. There's a penalty for that, and we found that penalty to be acceptable. In the same way, there's guidelines for this opening school back up. Some of them will have more penalties than others. And as a board, we'll have to decide which one of those penalties we're willing to accept. I mean, some of the penalties may be nothing more than a liability risk should an incident occur, which is not easily quantifiable. It's a risk you take, and you may decide that you want to take that risk. But to be able to make those choices rationally, it'd be good to know exactly what the rules are, which ones have the highest ramifications, which ones don't. To that end, Michael Weber has offered to meet with the board, if we so wish, to explain the rules to us so we could decide which ones of those rules are meaningful to us or cause us some particular repercussion that we would like. So I propose that we some kind of way get Michael Weber down here and explore those options.
That would be a workshop.
I'm all for not wearing masks. However, let me just play devil's advocate here. So you have a number of teachers who have expressed their concerns. And what happens when we have 30 or 40 or 50 teachers who say, if our students come back without masks, we're not coming to teach? I mean, I think you have to look at all of the ramifications. I think a majority of people are in favor of getting rid of masks, period. But there may be a number of people who we count on to help educate the children and provide services who will not come back to work. And they would also have a leg to stand on to say, you are violating certain rules, and thus we're not going to come to work. And then we're opening the door for a lot of chaos and contention and potential lawsuits back and forth on I should get paid, you're not following the rules. There's just a lot of things that I think you open the door to when you say, we're going to obey some of the rules and not others, or we're going to change them to suit what we think everybody wants, but you know that not everybody wants that. And as I said, I am in favor of getting rid of masks. It is a detriment to everyone. However, I'm also a big believer in obeying the rule of law, and I don't think that we can start to bend the rules according to what we would like to see.
We just did last week.
But
bent the rules, right?
But this is a different situation entirely. And I think you have to be very thoughtful about where you're going as you go down this and the unintended consequences of what we think that we're doing. So I would just, I appreciate where everybody's at with this, and I agree. I think the best way to do it is have the governor come out and say, we're done with this, so that we don't have to continue to live this way. So, but again, I think you just need to think a little bit more clearly about what the ramifications are when we have employees of the school district who say, I'm not coming back to work in that type of environment, and where that places us, and then what do we do to fill those spots? We have a hard time filling substitute positions as it is. So I think you're just looking at a very sticky situation that you go down as we start to try to fit the rules to what we think we would like to do moving forward.
Well, but realistically, you raised a number of issues that we don't even know if they're real issues. I'm going to say they're straw man arguments that have yet to be proven, and we haven't thoughtfully considered whether those are actual things that we have to worry about or not. And so I'm not saying we shouldn't be thoughtful.
I would make a comment that the numerous bargaining sessions that we've had are 80% around safety for staff. And so, so I think it's more than a straw man in terms of recognizing that we would have some complications with our bargaining units to work through. Because, I mean, if this year told us anything, staff safety is going to be their highest level of concern.
I think it's worth, I mean, this is obviously a sticky situation already, right? We've got a community that is very, yeah, exactly. They're definitely on one side or the other. I think as a board member, I'd like to understand the full ramifications. So if we're deciding that, and I totally agree that what's, you know, what we need to have dedicated, committed teachers that come in every day and are exposed, their safety should be a top priority. And so adding that to the list of ramifications, I think would be good, but I feel better kind of eyes wide open knowing, okay, this is the plan, especially depending on what ODE comes out with for what next year is going to look like. We as a board can be prepared to kind of weigh that. And I think we could still come out and say, after considering all of these things, we've got to stay the path, we've got to stay the course and hope that this resolves sooner rather than later. But we'll have shown the community that we've done our due diligence and walked through that. And I think even if that's already happening, some level of transparency to it might help people feel a little better, and maybe it'd be less of a polarizing issue in the community.
Well, I think what, you know, if you step back and we watch how the world unraveled a year ago in March, and the number of changes that came almost on a daily basis as people try to figure out what are we going to do. It is going to be an equally unorganized process to then get back to normal. And if you look at from state to state, even the federal government and the state governments, nobody really knows how to do this. And some states are just opening up and saying whatever, and others like ours are being very cautious about how they walk. And I think that adds to the frustration that, you know, I have two boys in college in another state, they don't wear masks anymore. Their state is completely open. And so they text and say, life is normal here. While yet we're here on extreme risk until just last week. And, you know, so that becomes a very frustrating part of the world to watch other people kind of opening up and doing things differently. But this is, you know, we live in a state that is much more prescribed, and that is where we're going to be, and it's going to be a very slow, sticky process to get it ratcheted back down to no masks and no social distancing, and we're through COVID, and we're going to be slower, and that's unfortunate. I wish it would go a lot faster.
So are there are other school districts? I mean, I feel like it's closing in around us who are making thoughtful choices. We're just having discussions about to mask or not to mask.
They are feeling the same pressure that this board is.
Yeah.
Especially in the more rural areas, Southern Oregon, Eastern Oregon. Yes, they are experiencing the same community frustration and pressure on school boards.
So what if we just entertain the idea to look at the options? I think that's what we're talking about. I think if nothing else, to prove diligence, that we're willing to think it, work it out.
So we'll
and then be able to give a definite answer as to why we came to these choices.
We'll involve local public health, Oregon Department of Ed, OSHA in this conversation, and come back to the board with some clear parameter around ramifications. And if you have specifics, I would ask that you send them to me in writing, things that you would like answers on, clear answers on the direction.
Could we have a workshop with
Michael
Mr.
Weber?
Weber? Who is he again?
He's county health, just in county health.
He's actually more in charge of our rules than ODE is.
I'm more concerned with OSHA than, for instance, a report that says, okay, promise to do what we asked next year is okay. OSHA has got a proven track record of implementing the wishes and rules. And,
Yep, we can ask him those kinds of questions. What is OSHA allowed to do and that kind of stuff? He can answer them for us.
Well, I think there's certainly nothing wrong with exploring all of our options, getting all of the information. I'm in favor of all of this thing. I think I would just recommend that we start closer to home. I mean, what's going to happen with our teachers? Like, we can figure out that OSHA will or won't fine us $1 million for whatever. But if we don't have a number of teachers who refuse to come to school, what does that do for us as a school district? And that may be a more prohibitive place to be than worrying about what OSHA will or won't do. So I think there's a number of things that you're going to have to look at as a board to try to make that determination. And that's probably, for me, the biggest one is, are we going to have people that show up to work or not?
Sure, that's a good one. So how are we gonna get that kind of information from the teachers?
That would be informal discussions currently between myself and the association.
Well, at some level, it's the bargaining unit will be involved, but on a different level, it's really a question the teachers have to answer individually. Because if the question is, are the teachers going to come back? And 10 of them say they won't.
I'll bet that with legal counsel, because the perception would, I believe, would be that it would be attempting to individually bargain with teachers by just asking that question.
So we can't ask the teachers whether they're going to come back to work if there's no mask. And
so what we do know is working conditions and safety are two issues that we would have to bargain. And so that being tied in to asking the question, it creates a whole new set of complications. But I will run it up the flagpole with the Hunger for Thought.
I think we're supposed to make valid decisions or well thought decisions. That's the answer we need.
Let's see what kind of an answer we can get, and we'll go from there. So I think that's the first natural step, was get the answer.
And you know, we dipped our toes in that water this year when we talked about coming back for hybrid and got some initial data, and it was mixed in terms of their response, but then when we actually came back, it played out different than the data in the responses. So the validity of that.
In the spirit of don't tell me what you can't do, tell me what you can do, you should be promulgating rules back up the chain to ODE about what you think it looks like for an acceptable opening. Don't passively sit there and wait for them to do. They're not particularly experts.
So ODE is going to follow what Director Allen does at OHA and what he says that we need to do. That really is how this is playing out. I believe I represented our community very emphatically last Thursday with Director Allen and channeled the frustrations that I'm getting, that the board is getting from our community. Channeled those into a meeting, and it felt like it fell on deaf ears. Well, we are doing that with legislators.
For instance, you can write down on a piece of paper or something, date it, put your signature and send it up to them and tell them that if the risk of some COVID infection to a student is less than the 5th highest risk to a child, that there shouldn't be any guidance from the state relating to it, because it's just number 6 on the list of many. I mean, there's some rational choices that could be made. I mean, COVID for children, I don't know where it ranks exactly, but it's not very high. So why are we doing the question back to them is, why are you doing all this
we
stuff?
are. So what I would tell you is
thing that's number 10
we
on
are.
the
They
list.
don't want to hear our science. Right. They don't want to hear our science. They're the mantra up there. This is all based on science. And we don't determine, and the philosophy, the frustration is, the philosophy up there is we don't determine our pathway, COVID determines our pathway. And that is repeated at almost every meeting that we've been in, whether it's with OHA or it's with ODE. And so I let Director Allen know that that's getting really old and very difficult to swallow for much of our community.
Who's telling them that's not science?
I think I'm hearing that Kirk's doing all of the things
He's
you're
trying.
saying that he's supposed to be doing.
I will do whatever else the board wants to do. We're doing that.
Okay, next meeting you have with them, I want you to report back to me that you told them that that's not science, okay?
Okay.
Well,
Glad I brought it up.
I don't talk as much as some of you folks do. But I get to a point where I'm thinking, what are we doing tonight? And what I think we should be doing is what the chairman has told us and given us good sound advice based on, he's a professional for one thing, so he knows more about disease to begin with. But he also, I begin to wonder if he doesn't know more about people. So I may find myself deferring to the chair because he is a physician and deferring to the superintendent because he's a superintendent. I'm not a superintendent. And we hire the superintendent, pay him to get the answers, even if he can't find them. But he's supposed to look for them. And I think we ought to be giving him, and this sounds like a discouraging word. I don't think any of us 7 board members are smart enough to have all the answers. If you are, send me a letter, tell me I'm off base. I don't think we're that smart. We want to be, we want to have answers. I even argue this thing back and forth with my wife because she's in a school district, doesn't think like our district. But I don't care. My philosophy comes out of our district, our school board, and our leadership team, to say nothing of the teachers, the whole staff. And this is us. It doesn't sound sometimes like this is us. Somebody said this to me the other day on the street corner, somebody else called me up and said something else. Somebody sent me a letter. I had a bad dream. I mean, we've got to be more in an unknown world now of a pandemic. We've got to be more willing to consider that we might not have all the answers. We might not.
Cliff,
Rather than to, I'm not quite through.
I can wait.
Rather than to try to fight some battles. We've got enough battles going on just in the society than to fight this as much as we have. I just want to, I may be the only one of the 7, but I don't think so. I agree with the chair. I believe that he's looking at it the right way. He and I don't agree on everything. He doesn't like masks. I'm okay with masks, but that's fine. But everything else he says makes sense to me. But when we bring up almost every time the subject comes up, we have the dissident opinion coming up, which is okay, but it's getting to be, it's never a positive look at how we might approach this and be cooperative with the state of Oregon, the community of Grants Pass, County of Josephine. And we've been that for years. That's District 7 school board. And, I just sometimes shudder a little bit because I don't know why we have to have unending conversation. And I know I'm taking a long time to talk now, but I don't normally take this much time, as you know. I just have strong feelings about this, that I would like to see us rally around the flag, whatever that flag is. And I've told you the flags that I'm most interested in. And it's not my next door neighbor or the guy in the restaurant that I bump into, or even at church. My church doesn't even agree with me. I don't agree with my church. So, but I know you have to handle it professionally and reasonably and sensibly and trying to understand and cooperate. We need, cooperation is such a big thing. Okay, I'm through speaking.
Well, I hear you reference that, we talk to the neighbor or we get a letter, and I think that we represent the community. And so when we hear these things and we get these letters, then that's part of our job as a board member to bring them to the rest of the board to discuss.
Well, I agree with you. That certainly.
So when we reference those things, that's what we're referencing.
But well, let me just go back in time. There have been people on this board since I've been on it that they seem to have all the connections that I don't seem to have. And I don't know that they're more social than I am, or that they make more acquaintances than I do. I don't keep track. But some individuals just say, oh, well, and they have talked to somebody, and I can almost know what that person might say. And I'm getting to where I'm almost, I could talk for you if you wanted me to. Well, and I'm not picking on you. But what I'm saying, I don't want to do that. I want to be structured the way we've been so successful. We have such a great reputation in this community. We're not troublemakers. We're problem solvers. And let's see what we can do with a positive view. I believe the OSBA board is talking that tune right now. I don't know that, but that's the way they work. So you get everybody together, all the board members together, and think positive and hold one another up rather than worry about somebody on the street, what it says. So that's my point. I just don't want to beat it to death, even if I have, but I've got to get my point across somehow.
Well, I think, Philip, I appreciate your comments. I think what we've kind of agreed on here is that more information is needed, and we've directed the superintendent to go out, bring that back to us so that we can have a more robust conversation with maybe better data moving forward, so we can make some decisions about this topic that is important to our community.
Good.
And I think the discussion we've had isn't that we're not unified, it is bringing up issues that I think we need more information on so that we can make a valid decision as we move forward. So I appreciate that. Kirk, I know that we have lots of, Debbie, do you have a comment?
Well, just kind of building off this conversation a little bit. We represent the community. People talk to us, but then the next step for us is to give those concerns to Kirk, and he's the one who has to make the recommendations to us and give us the information as to why that recommendation. And I don't believe this is the right forum for talking this to death without a discernible track out of it.
Well, I think the track for us tonight out of it is to gather more information. And so we'll direct our superintendent to do that and bring that back to us, and having information as best as we can about our teachers and their thoughts and feelings, and OSHA and OSBA and all of that information so that we can make an informed decision, I think is a valid way to proceed. So, I know we have a few community members who would like to speak on this issue. So Todd, if you want to grant them 3 minutes, and we'll open it up to those who have put something in the chat.
Absolutely. So Byron Robertson, you're up, and I'll start the timer when you begin.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yes.
It's interesting to sit here and listen to the dialogue that you guys just had for the last 20 minutes. I think that is exactly what us as parents and community members are looking for, is to know that there is discussion going on and being transparent as to what the plan is, if there is a plan, or in the business world, which being a part owner of a local business, especially in the time of crisis or adversity, you usually have multiple plans, contingency plans, in case this happens, or that happens, then we're always prepared. And you guys are running or helping to run a large corporation, if you were to look at it, where your customers are our kids, and you're in the customer service business, and your jobs are tasks to go find answers and have plans that when things arise or problems arise, that you're prepared at a moment's notice to be able to react and jump at that. And I feel like the perception, at least on my end, and I know I've talked to many, many community members and parents, and I have 2 boys at the high school, that the lack of transparency in this open dialogue gives us the perception that maybe we're not prepared, and we're flying off the cuff sometimes. And we're such a reactionary society these days that the littlest things cause us to overreact. And I know that you guys all have our kids' best interest, or else you wouldn't be there. And I thank you guys for putting this agenda item on, and hopefully it stays on here, because I think that the parent community needs to know that you guys are having this constant dialogue, not just once every 3 or 4 months. I've been on these meetings for multiple months now, and this is the first time that I've heard such a dialogue about school opening. And I applaud Superintendent Kolb for taking the suggestion to put it on there, and I hope it continues. The frustrations that we all have, it lies within the perception again that maybe the tail is wagging the dog here. And I'm going to ask a very question to you as a board and the superintendent. And it's been commented in different articles, and you can confirm or deny it. You don't have to respond right now, but I would like to know, is the teachers union and their call for bargaining on a consistent basis, every time there's an adjustment in the mandates or recommendations from the CDE or OHA, they call for bargain, which gives them in essence 90 days if they want to delay or drag out any agreements to go forward, to have something in plan. We had our blueprint for the school district for Grants Pass High School was just recently updated to be able to be approved, which I'm assuming followed the memorandum of understanding that was finally agreed to with the teachers union.
30 seconds.
I look back, and 9 out of 10 school districts I looked up had all of their blueprints in place by either December or January for high schools. So I don't understand why we're so far behind and why we're not prepared. Medford jumped when the opportunity arose, and they had their kids back in school. But yet we're still floundering, and we were both in the high risk category at that time. So I guess my question is, the frustration is, are we prepared to jump at a moment's notice? And what it sounds like maybe we are this time, if we do go back on May 20th. But the frustration lies with a lot of us. The perception is maybe we're not prepared as a district, or the teachers are, some teachers, the minority teachers, because we listened to Coach Musser, Wyordy, and Wakefield a few months ago, voice their displeasure with their union that they are not being represented, that maybe the majority of the teachers do want to go back. The teachers were the first in line to get vaccines. They're prepared. And then it's from that point, their choice, whether they want to go back to school or in next fall, whenever it is, they have a choice. If they don't feel safe, then they don't have to go. They can choose to not put themselves in that position. But our best interest is to get our kids back in school full time, because you guys have all heard the stories of what it's doing to our kids. And I've watched firsthand my 2 boys who are 4.0 straight A students come home with comments like, what purpose do we have anymore going to school? Why? It's not worth it. The teachers don't care. The teachers don't even ask us if we got a problem or our homework right or wrong. They just give us 100%. Kids are cheating on tests. Kids are using resources that they normally wouldn't get a chance to use if they were actually in person. So we're asking kids to be responsible and accountable and have an urgency to learn, but yet we have some teachers, and I'm just talking at the high school because that's my experience, that my boys have teachers who don't share the same responsibility, urgency, and accountability for themselves to actually put a full-time effort in as a full-time employee of the school district. So my frustration lies there. We can't control our governor. We can't control OHA. We can't control ODE. What we can control is Grants Pass School District 7 and how we approach things and how we want to serve our customers, which are our kids. And that's the only reason that we're here, is to teach our kids. And that should be the priority number one. And going forward, I hope that we're not reactionary, but we're more proactive and have plans in place, multiple plans. Businesses always have plans, or else you die and you don't survive when things go bad. So thank you for your time. I appreciate, and I so applaud the dialogue that you guys finally had tonight on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson.
Thank you, Byron. Not an attempt to be comprehensive in my answer to your question. A couple comments. Yes, we have spent a significant amount of time this year in collective bargaining sessions, which ultimately dictate the changes that will occur with updating the blueprints. We're always prepared and have shelf-ready blueprints, so to speak. But a lot of that can be dictated by collective bargaining. So just a short, brief attempt. You and I have had some good dialogue, and look forward to more.
Okay, and then Tricia, are you prepared to speak? And you have 3 minutes. You're ready to go anytime.
Hello, board members. I'm Tricia Bricky, and I work at the high school in special education. And as I watch and listen, first of all, I want to thank you. I don't know who read the letter that I sent recently, but in that, I did thank all of you for all the time that you've put in. I know that you were not all prepared for this. None of us were. So with that, I took some notes, and as I was watching and listening, and I don't mean to point fingers. I want to make that a point. But I did notice that some of you removed your masks and spoke without them. Our students, they wear their masks all day. They are allowed to have mask breaks, but as I was watching and recognized an hour and a half into this meeting and masks being removed as you spoke, it just made me think that our poor kids, you know, they aren't allowed to do that. And us as teachers, it just, you know, it's very hard to be in that position. Sorry. So also, the next thing, I think that we can also all agree that the majority of staff, at least at Grants Pass High School, I can't speak for other schools, but the majority of staff that I've spoken with don't want masks for our students. I understand your concern with possibly losing some teachers and staff, but I think when you really look at the overall, that the ones that don't agree with mask wearing far outweigh the ones that do. So I think that just needs to be taken into account. Another thing that was mentioned was the sub shortage, and that we're already having problems with subs. And I just wanted to comment on that the majority of the sub shortage that we have right now, I believe, is because of distance learning. Many of our subs are not educated on the programs that we're using for distance learning. So they are either not available or are afraid to attempt to use those programs.
30 seconds.
And so I think that if we were to move forward into in-classroom teaching, that there would be more subs available. I think this was brought up, possibly doing a survey on whether teachers would be willing to return without masks. I wrote down that note prior to it coming up, but if that is a possibility, I think that that would be a fantastic idea. So you guys can see the numbers and know who would be available. I believe that's all I wanted to go over. Again, I just want to thank you all, and I look forward to hearing what you guys come up with, and cross my fingers for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. And that's all we have that I can see in the chat who would like to speak on the topic.
All right, well, thank you. All right, well, more to come in our upcoming meetings. So we will move on to 4.3, board reports and special concerns. Do we have it?
I've already done a lot of talking, so I'll keep this one short. Very exciting meeting at the city Bikeways and Walkways Committee meeting today. And Brian is the liaison of that committee to the city council, which he sits on, as you know. And so he's right in the middle of everything that committee does. And what that committee is doing, Bikeways and Walkways, is essentially, trying to get improvements in our area, through the whole county actually, for connectivity, getting from here to there in a safe way and not getting run over, and bicycle, walk, whatever. But it also involves a lot of things such as how much deferred maintenance there is, or how much potential improvement would be nice if it could be justified. And so I had a nice visit with, I think she's a retired teacher that's on the council. Do you have the name?
Valerie Lovelace.
Pardon?
Valerie Lovelace.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. And I told her that, and I'm going to be working with her on this sidewalk, safe routes to schools, which is something I've been dreaming about would happen here in Grants Pass for probably 20 years, ever since I first heard about it. But I didn't know who to talk to or how to get it. All of a sudden, it's been handed to us on a silver platter through the efforts of people like Mrs. Lovis, and is that it? Lovis? Yes. And also some other folks that you remember the Blue Zones campaign? That is evidently finished. I didn't know that, but it was very effective. I think it brought safe routes to schools to this community. The $1,700,000 invested in improvements around Lincoln Elementary School, and the other 5 elementary schools will have some improvements from this grant. There are 2 grants, I think, that may total even a little more than that. And they're even working on the school that's not in our district, but it's in the city, which is, that's where my wife works, at Fruitdale Elementary. And they've already announced improvements that will come to them because of this grant, or these grants, and maybe a little patch job out even at Williams School. So it's nice that the whole county can finally receive some funding from the state of Oregon. And they've been wanting to do something for us, but nobody had ever asked. And then this Blue Zones movement did ask, and made the ask, and they got accepted. And then I started looking at the list of communities in the state that are in the program already. And I'm wondering what took us so long. But I'm so excited about it, and the interaction that will take place. Brian, if he were here, he'd agree. There'll be a lot of activity. I know Sherry Ely's right in the middle of it, representing the education part of safe routes to school, which is a hard concept if you're not ready for it. You don't know what, well, how does that fit into education? Because this is not just getting the kids to school on a bike or walking or with a car safely, nobody gets run over. We've had some accidents around the district at different times. But this is a real opportunity, I think, and this may be a 5-year project, or maybe take 10. They haven't started yet. We're having only the second meeting that's coming up. They're trying to get a date. They can't handle the pandemic either right now. It's just thrown them into a tizzy, but they have a sound program, and we're going to be part of it. And we can do the same with these other things too. We'll be a part of a sound program for the state of Oregon, the city of Grants Pass. We'll all come out, but we have to be very patient. We have to be methodical, and we have to have the leadership that will help us get over the hump each time we get stymied. So I appreciate what the comments were made, because I like to hear from people that aren't necessarily sitting on the board, but they're real people out there that are in businesses, and they're talking about this all the time because it's very unique. So I think us talking about it is important as well, but I think we have an opportunity to be very structured the way we approach it, because this is the leadership of School District 7. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share.
Anyone else?
Well, I am always pleased to read the Courier's articles on cavers and cavemen, and it's been a hard year for all our athletes, but things are changing slightly, and there are some bright spots, and it was fun to read about the girls' golf team doing so well, and other team sports. And I know that my brother has said many times that athletics were the only thing that really kept him in school to graduate. So I have a special place in my heart for all the athletes of Grants Pass High School. And I know that we're all working to make it as easy as possible for those young people to compete.
So I would, just combining those two comments, the city has offered, and we have to pay for it, to open Caveman Pool on a limited basis, so our local swim teams specifically would have access to the pools. And so not opening it for the public, but on a limited basis, be able to open it to allow North Valley, Hidden Valley, and Grants Pass High School the opportunity to practice and compete in the water as opposed to do all driving. So Director Ely is working on that deal.
Can I say one more thing on that subject? This is in the wind as well. The City Parks Committee, of which I am an original member, and I'll be on it till I die, unless they get rid of me. This is so exciting, because Brian, the only one I heard bring up the swimming pool in the Parks Committee, and or the other committee, which is liaison to bikeways, walkways. It's all in that same, the facilities we have. Brian said he wanted to have a pool, and there was some thought in town, no, can't afford a pool anymore. I didn't like the sound of that, and I'm not a swimmer, but Brian kept pursuing that to where now, my understanding, I wish you were here to explain it, the city is going to form a new committee, all because of what Brian said, the only one said. New committee, which will be 4 volunteers that are interested in the city swimming pool, whether we keep the same one or do another one, or go to the YMCA instead, or whatever. But we have Thursday, we will recommend 4 or 5 people, including, is it Nikki Your daughter?
My daughter would be, my wife is,
Your wife is Nikki?
yeah, my daughter is Hallie.
Okay, I'm recommending she'd be great on the committee. She's interested in it. Pardon?
Nikki, you're out there.
Huh?
I'll break the news to her.
Well, don't tell her. Nobody knows anything till city council decides they want it. So they're gonna put these 4 or 5 people together on the park with the rest, the original park committee, which is 7. So you'll have 11 and 12 citizens in the community deciding what to do for a swimming pool, or whether to have one, or build one, or repair one, or whatever. That's very exciting to me, and there's some other good names on there. Some of you older District 7 people may remember the Sackett brothers. Remember Richard Sackett? He's an applicant, over 70 years in the community, and he wants to take on a committee job. And so, and there was a lady over 70 years in the community that applied. And some of you may know Brad Converse, who's a young man who's everything he touches seems to turn to gold. So he's our future, as long as they live here. And he's an applicant. So I try to recommend people I knew, but I'm just one of 7 that will make those recommendations, decisions Thursday this week. Then they'll go to city council, and then they'll have to make the final choice. But all this is great because just because of what Brian said, we still have, otherwise it might have closed the pool forever. That's what I want to share.
Thank you. I'll just report briefly. I did send an email out. We have selected 3 applicants for scholarship. They will be receiving $350 each. And we will hopefully have more money to distribute next year depending on the work of the board. So that's excellent news as well. And we appreciate all who have donated to that account. And we hope to continue to reward our students for their hard work. So not hearing any other board reports or special concerns, we will move on to our action items for this evening. 5.1.1 is approval of our 9th grade Reach for Success. 5.1.2 is GP Flex New Institution ID. 5.1.3 is Gladiola School New Institution ID. Do we need any conversation on that, Kurt?
I think you could motion to approve everything and open up conversation and ask for explanation on any item.
So move.
All right, well, why don't we take all of our action items in one move then? So we'll have a motion. I will entertain a motion to approve all of our 6 items.
I'll make that motion on the 6 items. Member Coolman.
I'll second.
All right, any questions or discussion on the 6 items? Gary.
Well, I am just pleased that the principal and the former AVID teacher were able to come up with this, and then the new replacement AVID person were able to come up with the Reach for Success curriculum. And I know District 7 is constantly looking for ways to expand the opportunities of every student. So I appreciate this effort.
Thank you.
I would like some explanation about the new institution IDs for GP Flex and Gladiola School.
Yep, 2 different circumstances there, and I'll let our director team fill in any blanks that I might not hit. So GP Flex, we want to recognize it as its own school, so we have to register it as a separate institution with the state of Oregon, or with the Oregon Department of Ed. Gladiola is a little bit different. What this does, currently Gladiola is captured under all of Grants Pass High School. And we've deliberated, this board has deliberated a number of times as to whether or not we continue that model. Several advantages for Gladiola to have its separate institution ID. If you look through the application, they are applying as an alternative school. With an alternative school, you have much, much greater flexibility with staffing and highly qualified and programmatic offerings. So it creates a lot of flexibility as alternative schools are intended to do. Right now, we're bound by the requirements that an English teacher has to be English certified, social studies certified. And so it really gives flexibility in there. We also, there's a benefit, Grants Pass High School, when you look at their overall data, it doesn't get combined with, when you start talking about graduation and achievement data and dropout information. So it will reflect very positively for Grants Pass High School in and of itself. As a district, we still have our eye on all the data, but also gives us some accountability to the Gladiola data in terms of, we just got to call it what it is and what are we doing to shape that with that flexibility we get as a recognized alternative school program. So, so Todd or Trish, I don't think GP Flex needs much explanation, but if there's anything you wanted to add regarding the Gladiola designation. Any further questions on that one in particular?
So that debate we've had many times, and specifically, we did not want Gladiola to be a separate institution. It's always been the sense of the board that that's actually part of Grants Pass High School. And so I'm not in favor of Gladiola getting a new school. And I mean, I've seen what they do over in Medford with their data and achieving numbers. So why did we want to start doing that here?
What we really want is the flexibility it gives us for staffing and programming. That is what really drives this, for us to be more creative and more flexible in what we're able to offer and provide. That I can have science teachers teaching CTE classes. So it's more about programming than it is about being a separate institution. Because ultimately, in the end, we report, just like Medford does, they have an overall district graduation rate. That won't change. Previously for us, the overall district graduation rate was the Grants Pass High School institution rate. So, so we will still have that data. We'll still report that data. That's what gets reported out ultimately for the district.
I'm not hearing a real downside to having a separate institution ID, but obviously I wasn't part of the discussions previously. So if there's a downside that I'm not hearing other than that's not what we used to do.
And let me try to capture some of the historical conversations and the desire of the board. And Gary, you can expound upon that, or Debbie, or Cliff, those who've been here for those conversations. It was really seen, these are all our kids, and we're not going to put these kids over here in a box, but we are going to tend to all kids. And so really that we are GP. If you're at the high school level, and it was more of a philosophical approach that comes out of a compassion and genuine interest to represent all kids collectively. Is there more to it that I missed in those conversations? That's it.
And I'm assuming that kids at Gladiola can still go to Grants Pass High School and take classes, or
yes, they will still have all the opportunities at Grants Pass High School that we currently provide, and depending on what their schedule looks like and the flexibility we can have, could potentially increase.
I'm all for more flexibility. You know, I agree with Gary. I don't want us to be a warehouse for alternative people that some districts that use this vehicle for. But I don't see that happening, and I know that we received reports and looked at that data carefully, and I trust administration to truly give our students more opportunities.
I get the sense that Gladiola has really grown into the students are proud of that school, and that's their school, and that's where they thrive. So that identity's come out even more, at least in the short time I've been on the board.
Absolutely.
And that's grown. So I don't think that sense of not feeling like I'm not part of the high school anymore. Maybe that's not as much of a concern.
They truly have established and take a lot of pride in their own identity.
Superintendent Kolb, if I could just add to the conversation, this is Director Bloomquist. We did a lot of work on the back end to think about this decision, and also working with ODE on the purpose of that alternative ID for the institution, and really truly providing a lot more flexibility for our kids who, once you have the limitations of a small campus like Gladiola, you really have to work harder at it. And so just provides more flexibility for our kids. They can still be dual enrolled with Grants Pass High for other options. More internships and those kinds of things become available to the kids. I am a firm believer that these are all of our kids, so we report out all of our data. And so in terms of what other districts might be doing to tout a high school or a particular school's data, these are all of our kids. We are GP. And so I think we should always report all of our data out. But this does help us identify which populations might need more supports in different ways, because that data is masked in the mass data. And this helps us have a little better eye up on that whole thing. So also just keeping in mind, GP Flex will be reported out differently as well. It's a K-12 school. So again, helps us get down to the individual school and how they're doing and what we can do to intervene to help kids and provide supports for them.
And I'm just going to weigh in as well. Todd is right on. We have talked about this for years, and it was not a choice we just made. Looking at the data and being able to really parse out where do our resources need to be more targeted, how can we help support, not just at Gladiola, but frankly at Grants Pass High School. We need to be catching kids sooner than their freshman and sophomore year at GPHS. When they come into Grants Pass High School, we know who's at risk. How do we help and support them early in their career so that when they get to their junior and senior year and are credit deficient, that they're ready for that regular high school diploma or getting done. So we believe that the data will help us be more targeted and intentional about how we target our resources.
Not to be illogical or anything, but so maybe we need a separate school ID for each student so they can all be targeted.
I believe that's called an academic plan, which they were putting it in place.
So
in some way, you are getting that.
Given that there's so much flexibility with these new school IDs, thinking maybe we should have Grants Pass High School under some new school ID so it has the same kind of flexibility. Is that something that's possible?
They're not an alternative ed, though.
Yeah,
That's the whole point.
It's not an alternative program.
Let's walk before we come out here. Start with Gladiola.
Who says it's not alternative? It's an
Let's
alternative
start with
school where
Gladiola.
every student has their own personal education plan, and then we get lots of flexibility. Just go into the logical conclusion. I'm sorry.
All right, any other comments on any of the other action items or concerns? The dairy bid or calendar for juvenile detention? Yes.
It appears as though chocolate milk is going from 1% to non-fat. Is there a reason? Michael Morris out there?
And hopefully Michael's here.
It just happened to be what I was. He wasn't on that. He was going to log on for 2 hours on the chance we'd ask about chocolate milk at the end of the second element.
All right, well, hearing no further discussion, we will ask for a roll call vote on our action items.
Member Durbin? Yes. Member Brownell? Yes. Board Chair Nelson?
Yes.
Member Coleman?
Yes.
Member Wilkins? Yes. Member Wilkins?
Abstain.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. 6.0, future meeting dates and suggested agenda items. You can see them on the agenda. We will have our next board meeting on the 25th. And then we have our valedictorian and salutatorian lunch, which is on May 25th, the same day at 11:30 a.m. And then our board meetings on the 8th and the 22nd. So, any questions about those?
Do we call the Mike Weber next, or when we discuss, is that a workshop, or do we throw that into a board
I
meeting?
think you can make it a report for the board meeting ultimately. We'll do all the homework and bring that back to the board as a report and have Mike Weber present to answer any questions for the board. I think that's the simplest way to go about getting that information. And instead of a workshop, because this is an agenda, going to be a standing agenda item, it will be tied directly to that.
Great, we will adjourn our regular session. Take a 5-minute break.
Todd's been monitoring the chat, so he'll make us aware if there's anything that we need. So thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you, everyone. We will adjourn and we will convene in 5 minutes for our executive session.
And we only need Director Cantola in executive session.